Well, hello there. How
Hi,
you
guys.
gentlemen
Hello.
doing?
Doing well.
Just got in
E-
town
Excellent.
or out of town.
Nick, I see you're trolling the chat again with your with your hat there.
Absolutely. I switched colors.
They'll have to comment on that.
All
So, Steve, you
So
sent us
tonight-
this.
Yeah. We're going to do another analysis of Trent Horn.
Oh boy, this guy again.
Yeah, well, he's out there. And he did a stream titled I think the thumbnail said the red pill is a dead pill. And then the actual title was What the Red Pill Gets Wrong with Jordan Cooper. I think he's Dr. Jordan Cooper. Is that right?
Yeah. Well,
He's
that's right. Good.
So, okay, to set this up, okay, they had the host of this was some black guy. I don't know if he's a preacher or not. And then Trent Horn, who's Catholic, and Jordan Cooper, who is a Lutheran theologian. So you got three different faith guys really coming out to attack the red pill. So we had a choice of two different titles for this stream tonight. My first working title was Trent Horn versus the red pill straw man, because he makes a straw man out of the red pill. But then we were kind of texting back and forth, and then it came up with Trentasaurus versus RP Godzilla. So that's the one Plutarch liked. So that's what our thumbnail is. Maybe you want to describe why you like that one and what your thumbnail represents.
Well, I immediately took to that one because I saw it in my head that I could get the AI to generate a picture of this man pointing and yelling as a Godzilla stomps all over the church. And of course, Godzilla being the red pill, and Godzilla being, he's this red pill's destroying the church. And they actually talk in the stream significant periods of time about how the red pill's wrong on all this stuff, and the church has all these answers, and and all these guys are just heathen degenerates, which some of them are, but it's like this is destroying the church and everything in it.
But is Godzilla real? No, he's a character. He's really a figment of our imagination. And so, what is the red pill
menace?
Yeah, that'd be another good one. But Trent actually talks. He makes a red pill, and he turns it into a straw man. And so here's our straw man fallacy. A straw man fallacy occurs when someone distorts or exaggerates another person's argument, then attacks the distorted version of the argument instead of refuting the original point. By using a straw man, someone can give the appearance of refuting an argument when they have not actually engaged with the original ideas. I think this is what he's doing.
Yeah, it's the play of the rhetorician again instead of the logician.
Right. And that's a theme that you're going to see throughout this video. We're probably going to have to turn this one into two different streams because their back and forth was an hour and a half long, and our clips for it ended up being about 35 minutes long. That's just how much there was in here that we wanted to pull out and talk about. So,
right.
And then I want to bring up another one as a oops. Okay. Oop. So this is oversimplification and exaggeration fallacies. We don't need to go through this. I just want to bring up those words. Well, I guess I can read a bit. Oversimplification and exaggeration occur when actual causes of an event are reduced or multiplied to the point where connections between the causes and effects are blurred or buried. Okay, well, that's enough.
Okay.
So I just think about that, okay, when we get into this.
Isn't that what we do? Is cause people to think?
Well,
that's what we're trying to do.
So I don't know. Do you want to say anything more before we start moving into the clips?
We had to suffer watching this, so we're gonna make you suffer. No, it's all right. You ready, Steve? You want me to throw it up there?
Yeah.
So in the film, he's presented a choice by Morpheus: take the blue pill, go back to, you forget all of this, and you live life thinking that it's a normal world, but it's not. The blue pill is ignorance of the truth. Taking the red pill is learning the startling truth, waking up from the simulation and escaping the matrix. So those are the terms. Later in the early 2000s, the blue and red pill were used as political metaphors to the idea of someone escaping a widely accepted, comfortable falsehood. One of the earliest uses of it, liberal people argued that democracy is actually bad, even though you're raised your whole life to think it's good. Here's 10 reasons to think that's not true. Be red-pilled on it. Those are the earliest uses of it. So later on in the 2010s and 2015s, we see this being applied to dating and relationships between men and women. And so what I would say, and there's actually another pill that's come into this, and I'll wrap it up quick because I definitely want to get Jordan's thoughts on a lot of this. So the idea is that the red pill, well, the blue pill would be the idea that men and women, if you are kind and a good guy and a nice guy, you'll find a nice woman. And if you get married, you'll be happy. The thing that you've been told, and it's just the standard tale. And the red pill says, no, that's actually a lie. Men and women have a naturally exploitative relationship with each other. Women actually cause men more harm than good. And so if you try to be a nice guy and approach women, 80% of women are going after the top 20% of men. Women are shallow and exploitative. And so the red pill seeks to try to exploit those who are exploitative and give men different strategies to deal with what the startling truth that women are a harsh reality to men. So avoid marriage. And so what Pearl is arguing in the debate is that marriage sets up men for messy divorces, for heartache, that men should just approach women cautiously. And red pillars will give advice about basically how to manipulate women, because they say women manipulate you through looks, through, improving your looks, improving your game, doing all this kind of stuff. And then you can break through where other men can't. A lot of dating coaches use the red pill. Starting in 2016, there was another pill called the black pill. And the rhetoric is saying, you're right, there's an exploitative relationship between men and women, and men have it really hard and women are shallow. But the red pillars are wrong. If you are a below average looking man or even average looking, it doesn't matter how good your charisma is or your looks or any of that. It's basically hopeless. You can't really improve your situation. And so many of these individuals just kind of shun women, and their life becomes very cynical, and they complain about women, and their life focuses, and they become very misogynistic in that regard. And so Pearl is probably still in the red pill area, but in engaging her and engaging many of these red pillars, a lot of this it's a mixture of common sense advice about men dealing with women that actually is true, how you shouldn't just be a suck up or a Mr. Nice Guy, but that's mixed in with all kinds of falsehoods that assume that all women are just like these stereotypes you see on TikTok, or it ignores the fact that yes, there are bad exploitative women out there, but there's also bad exploitative men, and they don't get mentioned either. And so I made sure to bring that into my discussion with Pearl.
All right, that was clip 1.
Okay, well, he started out pretty good there, but then he defined the red pill message is it's all women exploit men, so men have to learn to exploit women. Is that the message of the red pill?
No.
Yeah, that's a what the F moment for me.
No, it just says this is the way you can observe that some generally act, or most generally act in this present day, and there's some nature to that, but it's also how to adapt to that situation. You give them what they want.
Well,
desire.
Go ahead.
He mentioned the blue pill. Oh, you just marry her and life is happily ever after. Well, we know that's not true.
That's not true. Then he talks about, then he does the nice
red,
guy thing.
Yeah, the red pill. Well, maybe there's some information here, but now he's trashing the red pill. He kind of said the blue pill is not where it's at, and then he trashed the black pill. But yeah, you don't live a charmed existence. So maybe you should know a little bit about the nature of women and their tendencies, and what makes for a good woman. Because even the Bible says not all women are good women.
That's true. Especially Solomon. Yep.
Well,
Price is above rubies. Rare as rubies.
Right. And when he's talking about the red pill here, he's trying to say, well, they get what he wants to say is they get the prescriptions wrong. I don't like their prescriptions, because later on in the interview, he says, well, they get some of the observations right. But every time he says that, he kind of rolls it back and says, well, they get some of the observations right, but here's an observation they get wrong. And I'm sitting here going, what?
Yeah. So notice how he initially did the nice guy thing, like he kind of acted like they're just teaching men to be these mean people, but then he kind of backpedaled on that a little bit. So, well, maybe it's good that they're not these nice guy, type things.
And then he complimented the red pill guys for some of the truths they have, but he never said what those truths are.
Right.
Well, let's move on to the next one.
All
right.
One of the disturbing messages among the red pillars is that you shouldn't focus on those things. Like the ideal of masculinity they present tends to be very machismo, crude, profane.
Yeah.
And this is highlighted as some kind of pinnacle of masculinity, when what I want to show, especially young, like I see young Christian men, and Jordan did a great episode about this on his show, that they will be on Twitter talking about glory to Jesus Christ, Christ is king, and they will just have hateful, vile language, profane language, verbally abusive language to other people, thinking that's what it means to be a Christian man. And I want them to see that when you act like that, that's not masculine. It reminds me more of when I watch like a 7th grade, like a junior high student
you have
smoking
these effeminate douches up here talking.
cigarettes or swearing, trying to look cool. It's just masking, I think, a very deep insecurity.
Ooh, just masking their insecurity. Yeah.
Oh, because we're not online with the egalitarian squish gay bullcrap that they put up with. Yeah. Okay. Oh, didn't previous generations of Christians call that crap abominations? And they called you effeminate for not standing up for the truth and caving in towards the philosophy of the day. Yeah,
but Trent's, and this is true. And when we looked at the Pearl interview, he is absolutely convinced that he holds the truth. I mean,
Yeah.
if you forced him to take a lie detector test, he would pass with flying colors. He believes this. He believes in his soul what he's saying is true. And I don't understand how he can say, "Oh, well, yes, those RP guys, they get some of this stuff right." And then turn around and spew out all this factually incorrect data that as we were
Well,
explaining last time about divorce.
I
And
can tell
then
you how
say,
that happens.
"Okay, go for it."
I got a theory. He got married. And he's said many times when men are married, they're happier. And I will attest to that. Yes, I'm happier in marriage. And then divorce happens. But he's in that happy stage and it worked out for him. So it's that belief that, gee, these men, other men, all these red pill divorced men would have been as good a man as I am and as, truthful and honest and all that. They wouldn't have had this problem. So therefore, I'm right.
Okay, Steve, got a question for you.
Okay.
How is it then that all of these men who come in with these stats that say, "Oh, men are, they're happier married and whatnot," how come none of these men have been divorced? They're all in their first marriages.
Could it just be statistics? I mean, there are a lot of men who just, there are a lot of marriages that never get divorced. And if you're in
Yeah.
that area and you're out spouting your view of things, you have no idea how close you are potentially to divorce
That's
or
true.
how easily it can happen. So,
Very true.
it's just the group of people who are fortunate enough that they have not been divorced. I mean, that's how I see it.
Okay.
Happy until you're not.
Okay. So, and that's how I was in my first marriage. You're happy until you're not. And in some marriages, you're never going to get to that point of the or not part. But
Right.
we know from now, yes, it is self-reported surveys, blah, blah, blah. But we know from self-reported surveys that most men and women are not happy in their marriages per their own definition. And there's whole conversations we could have about what's going on there. But they say that. So I see two things that he's doing here. First, he's very subtly taking his life as anecdotal evidence and presenting it as the common truth, as the common outcome. He never says that he's only talking from his experience here, because the data clearly shows that he is wrong on every point. 56% of all marriages will get divorced. Of those, I think it's somewhere like 10% report being genuinely happy in their marriage. Of the ones that survive. So, we're not talking about a lot of people who are genuinely happy. And so I'm wondering if also guys are gaslighting themselves into thinking that they're happy in their marriage. And I
was.
say that, yeah, exactly. I did too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
So, okay, if 10% of people are reporting that they're happy in their marriage, because these surveys, they're not asked in front of your spouse. You're allowed to be honest. So I'm wondering if that 10% of marriages are genuinely happy. I think that's probably closer to the truth. And
Probably. But if you would have asked me, even in my first marriage when I really wasn't happy, I might have even answered that way because she was gaslighting me and I was gaslighting myself. And, I thought that was normal.
right. And the right off the bat, a message that as a guy who's gone through all of this, guys, if there are problems in your marriage, please, for the love of God, and I mean that with a capital G, stop gaslighting yourself. you cannot improve your marriage if you're gaslighting yourself. There's nothing good that comes from lying to yourself, because that's what you're doing here.
Well, let me say something more on that.
And the church
If
will
you say,
gaslight
well,
you too.
it's gonna get better. I just need to be more of a man and do a better job, and I have to, get rid of these things that's irritating her. These are her complaints, and yeah, I need to take them seriously, and I really need to work on this, and then my marriage will be better.
I need to do church
No.
counseling.
Bullshit.
No.
It's not, you cannot, if a wife is complaining, the man cannot improve himself enough to ever satisfy her, because she's decided she's in charge and she's going to complain, and she'll complain regardless. Well, that's kind of true in all cases, but especially true in bad marriages.
In my experience, the more you try and debase yourself and make her happy, the less happy she'll be.
I thought you're supposed to humble yourself, guys. I thought we're supposed to be humble.
Well, that's why I
What's the
used the word
Bible say?
debasement.
What's the Bible say? Are you supposed to humble yourself before other men, or humble yourself before women? What's your answer,
Well,
Nick?
you could there can be humility, but you don't need no self debasement. You don't need to make yourself look soft and squish and reprehensible in her eyes. Like, you don't need to cry in front of her. You don't need to be that vulnerable, but you do need to be who you are. I mean, you don't need to sacrifice yourself on the church counseling, marriage counseling altar.
Yeah.
Now, there's a asterisk I want to place here. Look, guys, if you start being who you are and being that asshole, that's not likely to improve your marriage either. Because if a woman's decided she's in charge, and she ain't going to let you have that. So,
Screw 'em.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next one.
Alrighty.
Well, I was just going to say that self-giving, I think you're right, that's what leads a lot of men down. The denial and the failure to understand that, I think, comes from the mindset in the red pill community. And frankly, I think a lot of men get red pilled and black pilled because they have this mindset. They look at women, but even really other people in general, but they look at women with an attitude of, how can I extract value from this woman? They see women only as, okay, how do I extract value from her? How do I get her to like me? How do I get her to have sex with me? So men who are quote unquote blue pilled, they already have a disordered view when they want to just be, if I was really, really, really nice to her and I'm her best friend and I do everything she asks for and I'm always there for her, maybe one day she'll date me and go out with me. Well, you're not practicing self-giving because you're being manipulative. Now, you're being manipulative in a very unmasculine, needy, nerdy sort of way that red pillars rightly critique, that you're trying to manipulate this woman just in the least successful way possible. So they have an extracting value model towards women. So a lot of those blue-pilled men, then they never believe really in self-give. They don't value women for just being women. Hey, I could be friends, or we could date if it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
Oh, did I put something else in there?
Yeah, you did.
I was preparing for the next stream. Sorry.
Uh-oh.
That's okay. We'll restart the clip here. Boomer moment.
Well,
but then
we can add. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
When it doesn't work out, they go red pill, saying, oh, what I needed to do was to be alpha male, and I have to neg you, and I have to use all these pickup tricks, and I have to use this, and I have to looks max and game max, and I do this and that. So the problem is, then they have the extracting value mindset, and then they get black pilled when they think, you know what, I have the extracting value mindset, but women, it's impossible for me to extract value from them because of who I am. So I'm just going to be cold and bitter about it. When the entire thing you have to change is just this idea of life. Because if you look at it towards women, you're going to look at that way towards everybody. And if you treat everybody as, how do I extract value from this person? People are going to figure it out and not want to be around you. But when your life is about a genuine self-gift to others, paradoxically, other people will want to be a gift of themselves to you because they see you as a genuine and good person. That's what these guys are failing to see.
Okay, now let me start here. Now I'm gonna do this. Theology of the body. I don't know how many people have heard of this.
I have.
It's a Catholic thing,
Yeah.
and it was Pope John Paul II, who was a pope for a long time. He gave 133 or 131 Wednesday addresses, and he was talking about sexuality and marriage, and that body of work has been termed theology of the body. I studied it many years ago, so I'm not going to go into what it means here, but I just want to point out that, yeah, Trent is talking about some of those things. So theology of the body is a kind of a philosophy that's backed by phenomenology.
Okay.
And I think the philosopher was Husserl. He was one of the guys who started that. And, he's developed this into a whole theology. And a lot of it is true. Well, maybe all of it is true, but it kind of misses the point. But the reason I'm bringing this up there is Trent talks about this gift of self. So a husband and a wife in marriage, it's a gift of self. They give themselves to the other. So he's mentioning this. He mentioned it in the blue pill context. If you give enough, you will receive.
And that's
Well,
not true.
that's not quite true. But then he comes around it again. A gift of self results in a reciprocal gift of self, and thus becomes mutual. Well, that's not really true in most cases. Ideally, yes.
Sure.
And then he also implies that the red pill understanding of female nature negates the truth. And the truth is that a woman is made in the image and likeness of God. Well, yes, but she still has a nature.
And a
And if
fallen
you
one.
think you're going to get foster her to be a more perfect woman by just continually giving of yourself, and if that's the answer, I can tell you in practice, it's not. That doesn't mean you shouldn't make a gift of yourself to your wife.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
But making that the exclusive thing is kind of an oversimplification.
And it's also dangerous. This is the whole like mutual sacrificing that the egalitarians like to push is you got to sacrifice for one another, mutual submission that kind of leads into that. I'm like, yeah, there is a mutual submission, but not in the way you think of. It's according to your created and ordained role as a man and a woman and a husband and wife and the responsibilities God has given you in that hierarchy and order. But what usually ends up happening is it emasculates the man to serve the woman's desires. So he becomes enslaved to her, having all the responsibility with no authority, which is slavery, as Rollo says.
So, I mean, this whole egalitarian mindset, there is an element of truth in it. It's not entirely wrong. I mean, there's aspects of it that are true. But to make that the exclusive truth and form your life around that, no. Even when you're the leader, I mean, as Christ died for us, he's still the leader. And so he did sacrifice. He did make a gift of himself.
He did.
But not to the desires of the church and the people. He didn't subordinate himself to his followers, did he?
No.
He did wash their feet, but he
Sure.
didn't. But that showed his humility and his willing to do work and him valuing them. But he still never subordinated himself. So
Well,
don't
and
subordinate.
He didn't
the,
empty himself of his authority.
well, and so you brought up the feet washing thing, and this is something that gets thrown around a lot in Protestant churches, particularly the egalitarian bent of see, you need to wash your wife's feet. You need that's what a servant leader looks like. And I think it's a lot of what Steve is saying here is right, because what he's saying is we all know that the best lies have a kernel of truth, because that kernel of truth allows you, the consumer of the lie, to attach yourself to something that you know to be true. And once you do that, your brain is now open to accepting, from a pure psychological level, the rest of the lie. And so yes, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, and that was a servant leadership act. But he was still the leader. He didn't give up his position and his authority as a teacher. He said, and in fact, if I recall correctly, Nick, he was actually doing it to teach a lesson. I think the verse starts, do this, like there was, do this, in this way so that you can, I forget what the verse is, but there's some lead up to it where he's saying, look, this is something that I want you to do so that you understand that I'm trying to teach you a lesson about leadership. Right. And it's like, well, he's not really talking about giving up leadership. He's saying, understand that sometimes as a leader, you have to come in and remove obstacles from the people you're leading. It's you need to help them do their job.
So, at Easter, Catholics, probably Protestants too, have they do that public washing of feet where the pastor or the priest will come in and wash the feet. Well, traditionally it was 12 men. And then they started adding women into it. And then, the parishioners would also come in, or 2 or 3 people would wash the feet. So there was this mixing of men and women. No, Christ washed the feet of his disciples. A man washing a man's feet. There was never a man, Christ never washed a woman's feet. Never. But was it Mary Magdalene? Washed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried his feet with her hair. So, women say, oh, yeah, you should wash my feet. Sorry, that's not in the Bible. Correct me if
But
I'm
Jesus
wrong,
washed
Nick.
the disciples' feet, and I'm a disciple.
Well, it's also the demand too.
Right. His disciples didn't demand that he wash their feet, did they?
No, they were embarrassed.
Quite loudly, if I recall correctly. But that goes back to Jesus trying to teach them a lesson. Even in what he was doing, he was still leading them.
Right. Jesus is not some effeminate Lancelot. Balrog.
Absolutely. All right. Are we ready for the next one?
Yeah.
I also want to add something here. I do think it's very important, and it's a legitimate critique Pearl and other red pillars make, that they're not wrong about everything. So Pearl often brings to the point, like, you're always criticizing men. Why aren't you criticizing women? And I think that's fair. Sometimes when we talk about in these conversations, it's men who are being superficial, manipulative, exploitative. They're mocking masculinity. But I think many times men feel driven to do this as red pillars because they want to engage women, and they want to engage women who are attractive, who themselves exploit men, are superficial, So there will be women, men will say, like, I can't get anywhere with these women. I have to use all of these exploitative tactics. No, I think that both men and women, it's like both of them have to stand down in the arms race of superficiality. So, these men will criticize women saying, oh, they're hypergamous. What does that mean? Well, these women want to date men in the upper echelons of attractiveness. Well, everybody wants to do that. That's not related to women. Everybody wants, someone who's more successful, more attractive, is better value than they are. Everyone does that. But there are women who do that and women who don't do that. So, like, I would say to men don't treat women superficially and only use these manipulative tactics to try to get the upper echelon of women or wherever you want. But the same is true for women. Let's say, well, there are no good guys out there. Okay, but what about this guy who is a good guy? He's 2 inches shorter than you, and you won't give him a chance. Or he doesn't make 6 figures. He makes, high 5 figures, and that's not what you want. So I do think they make a point, but the point is not that, oh, women are superficial and exploitative, so men ought to do that too, so they can be even at the game. No, we all have to take a step back and start standing down. The question I have for Rolo, even though you're raised,
it's not going to happen though. Yeah, I'm waving my magic wand. Everybody's going to change their standards.
Nick, we live in different parts of the country, but I suggest you and I get together and we fly in Trent, and he's going to be our wingman to meet women. We're going to send him first, and he's going to, de-escalate things and do all his juju magic. And then
he's going to convince them to lower their standards. He's going to somehow magically change everything where they're going to not have these standards, and men shouldn't try to aspire to be better men to try to have access to some sort of delusional woman.
Yeah, how's that going to work?
He's in La La Land, man. That's the idealism. Let's wave this magic wand and everything's going to go hunky-dory. That's not reality. That's why the red pill exists. It's because these people can't. He's describing it, but then he thinks somehow it's just going to magically freaking change.
And here's the other thing I'm laughing at. He's describing, yes, women have some things. There's some valid points here. But all these valid points, men are just as bad. And even all these valid points, I'm going to talk about how bad men are in the same way in an 50-50 basis. So really what, and he talks about men and women as being the same throughout. It's this egalitarian mindset that the brains and the behaviors of men and women are the same. Their brains are in different shapes of bodies. That's bullshit.
So we see this in the non-Christian sphere as well. The same sort of mentality of, like, if you go out into the secular world, like I'm thinking back to when Pearl she did her Piers Morgan debates, or that's a very secular thing. And everyone else tries to bring it back to, but what about the women? It's the fallacy. The term for the fallacy is whataboutism. And it's all, oh, well, but women this and women that. It's like they cannot talk about anything at all, ever, unless it's in the context of how a woman feels about it. So even when the red pill is right, it's wrong because it doesn't consider the feelings of women.
Well, women are delusional. I mean, look, they all want top 20% of guys, and yet most guys would settle for way lower standards in women.
Come on. I think you're being a little harsh there. Women being delusional. Now, certainly some are, but I think the women are solipsistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily delusion. That's a different thing. That's self-focused. Women view their whole worldview based on their own personal experience of the world. That is solipsism. And
that's not reality. That's delusion.
Well, from your
Well, it's there.
standpoint, you're calling
Yeah.
it delusional. It's real from
Yeah.
her standpoint because she's
strong
looking at
delusion.
everything from her own personal experience.
Yeah. I'm saying from a, reality, the truth, biblical worldview, it's a strong he has sent them a strong delusion. That's the whole feminist worldview that we all live and breathe and live by. So
Well,
even
that's
us.
what he's tattling on himself here. Is
Ah,
that because of the whataboutism, what he's really saying is, I have been marinating in egalitarian feminism since I was born, and I don't know any other way to think but than to view this through the lens of how a woman might feel.
I think you have a
okay.
point there.
All right, so we lost our space a little bit, so I backtracked it. Might have to rewatch a little bit here.
Other people will want to be a gift of themselves to you because they see you as a genuine and good person. That's what these guys are failing to see. I also want to add something here. I do think it's very important, and it's a legitimate critique Pearl and other red pillars make, that they're not wrong about everything. So Pearl often brings to the point, like, you're always criticizing men. Why aren't you criticizing women? And I think that's fair. Sometimes when we talk about in these conversations, it's men who are being superficial, manipulative, exploitative. They're mocking masculinity. But I think many times men feel driven to do this as red pillars because they want to engage women, and they want to engage women who are attractive, who themselves exploit men, are superficial. So there will be women, men will say, like, I can't get anywhere with these women. I have to use all of these exploitative tactics. No, I think that both men and women, it's like both of them have to stand down in the arms race of superficiality. So, these men will criticize women saying, oh, they're hypergamous. What does that mean? Well, these women want to date men in the upper echelons of attractiveness. Well, everybody wants to do that. That's like, okay, but what about this guy who is a good guy? He's 2 inches shorter than you, and you won't give him a chance. Or he doesn't make 6 figures. He makes, high 5 figures, and that's not what you want. So I do think they make a point. But the point is not that, oh, women are superficial and exploitative, so men ought to do that too, so they can be even at the game. No, we all have to take a step back and start standing down. The question I have for Rollo would be, could
Okay, guys, this is the clip that we were supposed to get up to. Sorry about that.
Robinson Crusoe be a high value man? Hopefully he knows what that is. Like, could a man on a desert
Okay. I just got to stop right there, because I want to point this out, fellas. He mentions Robinson Crusoe. It's a character in a book, and he's talking to, saying, oh, well, he's talking to Rollo here, and then he immediately throws in this entirely unnecessary ad hom. Well, hopefully you know who that is. Why, Trent? Absolutely unnecessary. Just kind of makes you look like an asshole.
Is he implying red pill men are uneducated?
Yes, that is what that whether or not that's what he was intending to do, because I think he was directing that specifically at Rollo. That is what he did. And I, thinking back to our last breakdown we did of this guy, I do believe that he thinks that he is more intelligent than the red pill people, all of them. I think he's definitely convinced he's more intelligent than Pearl. Like, the guy is a little bit high on his own supply.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that irks me when I hear people do stuff like that. No ad homs, people.
island be a high value man? Because the reason he can't define it is because the definition isn't anything objective about the man. I mean, you could be a high value man if you could be a overweight, unhealthy, grody individual, but if you happen to be in a culture where women value that, suddenly you've become a high value man. It's a subjective definition, and what's supremely ironic about it is that red pillars often accuse people, I would say regular people like me and Jordan, would, calling us blue pillars, which is not true. We don't just believe anything that's said about the mainstream narrative, or accusing us of being simps. And a simp is someone who they would just say anyone who disagrees with them and has basic respect for women is a simp. I would say their definition
That's
of simp is
bullshit.
accurate. If a simp is
That's bullshit. They
Well,
do define what a simp and a white knight is. Red pillars do, and that's not what they described it as. So,
Well, if a man comes to the defense of all women and just is this white knight saying these red pillars are wrong, isn't he kind of simping? Not for an individual woman, but doesn't that make him a general simp?
in the actual, because simp is an acronym, and in the actual acronym, it does not imply a singular. The acronym can absolutely be applied to a group of people. So, Steve, you are correct.
Okay.
No, it is quite possible to simp for a group of people. Sorry, Trent. You simp for women. And later on in the stream, he actually simps for his wife too. So
Yeah. Well, that's fine. We're not going to criticize him for that.
sure.
Every man does absolutely need to defend his wife, and he should kind of gush about her. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. Absolutely. But he also does it for an entire group of women, which is not actually I could say that it's okay, Trent, I'm going to say this. It's a form of low-key cheating. # deal with it. No one's going to disagree with me? Darn.
No.
someone who pleads and begs for the attention of women and uses manipulative tactics to affirm women, but solely for the goal of getting their attention, affirmation, to hopefully exploit into physical advances. That would be simping. That simps, ultimately, they just do what they do because they care what women think about them. And they would say simping is bad. But what's ironic is Rollo's definition of a high value male, it's simping. A man is high value if women like him, if women want to be with him. Why should your value come from whether women want to be with you? Who cares? Like, you could put me or Jordan in an environment of women with loose morals who are trashy, and we would be low value men to them, and we wouldn't care. I don't care because we objectively have good qualities, and the women who
this is just all twisted. I mean, Trent is talking about he wants the attention of women. Remember, he works for Catholic Answers. Catholic Answers is primarily women on there, and that's his main audience. And he wants to be noticed as promoting marriage and not offending women. And then he's calling Rollo specifically a simp because this high value man is defined as a man who is attractive to women, who derives his value from women, which, okay, there's a lot of men who believe that. But then go back to Robinson Crusoe. Could he be a high value man? Well, not the way Trent is defining it, because it's an external definition. And he says Rollo doesn't do that. Defines it externally. Well, that's not entirely true either. There's this concept in the red pill called frame control. You're a man who just holds your own frame. You make up your mind, and the world can come and just bash on you. And no, I'm standing right here. I am not reacting to you. You can react to me, but I'm not going to react to you. That is a high value man. And okay, then he says, he and Jordan could go in a room with these trashy women and they would see him as low value. Well, probably.
Really?
But you know what? You can go in a room of trashy women and not pander to them and just stand there as the bulwark, as the man who, yeah, I'm not reacting to you. And they may not know anything about you. They still don't, they may not like you, but they won't put you in that category of low value man. And we see this phenomena when Andrew Wilson goes on the Whatever podcast. They may not like him, but do they consider him a low value man? I don't think so, because he holds his frame and he doesn't bow down to them.
So also on the red pill, you also hear like, be about yourself, chase excellence, not women. It's not that you don't want to ever like look for a woman, but you're solid in who you are and your own value. And it's not to say that we should ignore what women think either, because I mean, their behavior. So their selective behavior is based on nature. So they make observations, whether they will express that verbally or not. Their behavior shows that they chase, men that have some sense of frame control, game, you could say, or status or money and physical looks and strength. And I think that's valid observation. Who wouldn't want a man that looks good, has strong, has a stable mentality about him and can provide for a woman?
So Nick, what you're saying is that these guys are trying to smuggle an anti-nature view of women into the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to reframe that a little bit. When you deny the nature of a human, you deny that they were created in the image of God. You deny that God set up their nature. You deny that God built the world this way and he built it this way for a reason. Am I
Correct.
wrong?
Even though that nature can be twisted by the fall, which you do, that's what you see in
Right.
rebellion, not hypergamy, so Steve would say.
Right. But so what Trent has actually managed to do here is to take his own faith in order to appease his own feminism. He's taken his own faith and shot one of its core tenets in the head, which is that God created the heaven and the earth and everything in it.
See, that's the problem with most of modern Christianity is they've left the study of nature. They all have these ideals in their heads without dealing with reality.
Yeah.
Something the older theologians did do.
And this is a topic for another day, but it's why do we see so many Christians who actively antagonize, against science, and I'm not talking about, soft sciences. I'm talking about just observational science.
Right.
Because we have, particularly in the United States, and we've talked about this before in other, I think of the Consent to the Governed video, where in the United States, we have created so many of these religions and we have to be so rebellious. And it's like, we have lost the plot. We've gotten away from what Christianity is and it's supposed to be in the name of following some sort of broken ideology about what Christianity should be. Christianity's become its own a religion that worships itself.
No, a religion disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
Whom God created, even though it's fallen, nonetheless, God created.
Well, I have to. We as Christians accept that we live in a fallen world.
Right.
Great. I still have to observe said fallen world.
Right.
And I have to accept that the observations of the fallen world
are as it is.
Yes.
That's the reality as it is, and that's the problem. Is the church has lost that when they used to be the chief proponents of it and studiers of it.
Well, that's people forgetting that the church created modern science as we know it. Now,
Yeah.
that was done hundreds of years ago before the egalitarians ever existed. But it was the egalitarians that pushed us away from the study of nature. Ooh, there's one for you. The pro science crowd pushed us away from studying from science. Funny how that works.
Yep. I agree.
Well, I guess we should continue.
Yep.
Matter most, our wives. That's where we look for affirmation. Or before I was married, I look for affirmation from people who are virtuous, not just from women, whoever. So that's what's ironic about the definition, is that it's totally subjective. It's not anchored. What are the objective goods you as a man should have, regardless of what other people or women think about you?
Yeah. See, when I hear this, my first thought hearing this clip is other men.
I think what's interesting is I think what happens to a lot of men in this.
Okay, so we had a clip break there, but I think we actually discussed the main point pretty well.
I think so.
Red pill trajectory is they start with the pursuit of base pleasures, the carnal pleasures, like, oh, I would really like to have sexual relations with that woman. And that's what, and when they finally can accomplish that, that hits the dopamine, like, oh, it feels really good. But eventually that kind of pleasure becomes repetitive. You get on the hedonic treadmill, as it's called. It doesn't hit those highs anymore. It hits your brain just like any other kind of drug. And so those bodily pleasures don't do it anymore. But once they are able to go from, I can't attract women at all to finally I can get women, they want a deeper pleasure than just the pleasure of sexual relations, the flesh, and the deeper pleasure and that's why the deeper pleasure of things like pride, that, scripture and history of the church would say that the deadliest of sins is pride. Like why did the angels, the fallen angels, the devil, they were not tempted by bodily desires. They don't have bodies, but they were tempted by higher pleasures, by perverted intellectual pleasures like pride. So that's why you're right. These men will start at the bottom, like, oh, I can get these women. But then when that gets old, hey, but guess what? I get women better than you. I know this better than you. I'm on top of you in this game. I'm the one who's better at this. And then they get, like, if you think about a lot of like celebrities, rock stars, athletes, what is the greatest pleasure they have? It's not the money. It's not the women they attract. It's being able to know that on the scoreboard, they're higher than other people. And that's the highest pleasure they're seeking.
That was just a lot of blather.
You had to make us suffer. That's all this was about.
Yeah. That was man prattle.
Man prattle.
Lustful. Use woman to satisfy lust. Okay, you not man.
He didn't really say anything profound there, so
no.
No, Steve did that just to make us suffer. Thanks, Steve. See, when I put these together, I wasn't so I watched the interview, but I didn't pay attention to this timestamp. So as I was slicing this for the thing, I didn't know which part Steve was going to pick. If I had known, I would have left this one out, Steve. All right, we'll keep going.
Misogynist, and I don't use the term misogynist a lot because sometimes it's thrown around. Like Harrison Butker is called misogynist for saying women should value motherhood. Ridiculous. And it's like, get out of here. You drain the term of all of its meaning, but there are places where it can be used. And for people who think that, and that's when you get further along the red pill to the black pill, which is where you've given up trying to manipulate and manipulate and attract women because you think women are just awful and you want nothing to do with them. That's why some of these men become MGTOWs, MGTOW, men going their own way. That they just sit around and they're the ones who are the highest part of the pyramid because they've reached true enlightenment or nirvana. They have true enlightenment, that the real happiness comes from being completely separated
Come
from
on.
women because you see the truth about how awful they are. So from their perspective,
He's importing religious ideas into the red pill. Good job, man.
So he's Jesus
Oh.
smuggling.
No, he's like that's like what, Hinduism or Buddhism, Nirvana. I think that's Buddha. No,
Weren't there some church fathers,
no.
like the desert
I need to refresh
fathers,
that.
who separated from society and went in the desert to pray and just left women behind? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe they were really the first MGTOWs. Have you ever
Yeah,
thought of that?
Well,
they-
okay.
they must hate
Nick,
women.
Nick, doesn't Paul say somewhere that that it is better to be, alone, but if you have to, if you need to, get married to one woman?
Yeah, he basically says, "Hey, it's a gift to have this. It's a gift of God to have this. What you call it?
Celibacy.
Self-control, celibacy,
Right, yes.
sexual self-control, where you don't need to get married because you can control your sexual desires."
Well, doesn't that sound a lot like what the MGTOWs are doing?
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
I'm not. I can't. Some of the MGTOWs probably have the wrong reasons for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might have the right reasons for doing it. But who am I to judge their motivations? That's up for God to judge them. That's on their conscience. Just because they've decided to swear off of women does not make them evil or wrong.
No.
Potentially, they could be wrong or they could be right. I don't know.
Steve, you don't
Doesn't mean that
understand.
they hate women either. That doesn't mean that they hate women either. They're just not looking for it. Looking for that relationship.
So there are some MGTOWs who do actively hate women.
Sure.
So like I can think of their names, but I won't say them. But there are some MGTOWs who they don't hate women at all. They just they're no longer interested in playing the games that you have to play. I'm thinking of Joker here. He doesn't hate women. He's just he finds them boring mostly. Which but Steve, you don't understand. Trent gets to decide whether MGTOW is good or bad. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'll accept your correction.
So, but yeah, it's MGTOW is not good or bad. It's just a way of dealing with it, and that's I wanted to bring that up because it ties back to the point about Paul talking about celibacy and being able to do that. Some guys, they just don't want to deal with women. It's not that they're gay. It's not that they don't like women. It's just that they're not interested. They don't want to play the game. Yeah.
I grew up in rural Minnesota, and there were guys, bachelor farmers, who lived their entire lives. Even a brothers who were bachelor farmers. They farmed their whole lives, lived together until they were, in the same house, till they died, 70, 80 years old. Never got married, never interested in women. That's just the way they lived. And there's stories like this all over the place.
Mm-hmm. I had an elder in my church that was like that. He just no interest.
Sure.
Yeah. He just didn't want to deal with it. He said, "I had no interest. I'm fine." He was a farmer and he's content.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is, maybe there might be other reasons, and they're not just being content in themselves, but not that they hate women, but the prospects aren't very good. Even Solomon, what did Solomon say? He says, "And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, her hands as bands. Whoso pleaseth God shall escape from her. but the sinner shall be taken by her. Behold, this I have found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found. Ecclesiastes 7.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if a guy doesn't want to deal with women because and we know Solomon dealt with women, like a lot of them.
Yep.
We know that. And even he's saying, "Yeah, some days I don't want to deal with these these things." Okay, if a guy who can deal with, what was it, over 1,000 women has days where
Yep.
he's like, he's like, screw this, I don't want to deal with it. Is it not fair to say then that a guy who doesn't want to deal with women and just doesn't is, like even Solomon might agree with him? Oh, okay. So Trent, you're not talking about the Bible. You're importing some other theology or ideology into the discussion.
Saying anything nice about any woman in any circumstance is simping, because from their point of view, women do not deserve any kind of praise at all. Yeah. And the reason Pearl is so successful with this audience is because she is an anomaly. She is a woman who is willing to say women do not deserve any praise. So Pearl is sort of like an inverted porn star to them.
Who the hell says that women don't deserve any praise? I don't know.
Has Pearl ever said women don't deserve any praise?
No.
Remember in the beginning I said simple oversimplification and exaggeration fallacy?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I think this is the exaggeration fallacy. I don't think Pearl is ever. It's maybe the pull it out of your ass fallacy. So let's call it that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and did you catch that line he said right at the end before I hit pause there? Called Pearl a porn star for the red pill. I want to see if I can load that up again.
Deserve any praise. So Pearl is sort of like an inverted porn star to them.
Pearl is an inverted.
Rhetorician.
Yeah, this is sophistry for one.
Which is effeminacy.
Yes. But calling Pearl an inverted porn star for men because she's saying the truth? And okay, men like do men like it when she says the truth? Sure. Yes.
It's the truth, so I rejoice in the truth. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman.
Okay,
why is that? Why is that porn though? Why is that porn?
Porn, because they suspect some things. And here's a woman who's telling me the things that I suspected are true. She's affirming them. Wow, that's great. Let me watch more of her. She's a very unique woman. I kind of like what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Are they actually lusting after Pearl, or are they just kind of like, wow, here's a woman who's actually has a brain? And yeah, they're going to follow that. And yeah, they like what she sees, but I don't think they're lusting after her. And so it's a wrong analogy. I think they do appreciate what she says, because it might be the first time they've heard a woman actually make sense about some of these things.
Well, and hearing a woman say it and agree with what guys like, there's a lot of things that guys like we know, but particularly in this feminized world, we don't feel comfortable talking about publicly because it's like, well, am I going to get hit for saying that? like, but then you hear a woman say it, and now all of a sudden, all the guys can point and snap their fingers and go, "Yeah, I'm not saying it. She said it."
Right. Very true.
I also have a feeling this is why all the simps that for the feminist simps hate her, because her existence is a direct threat to their narrative.
Mm.
The fact that a woman is willing to speak the truth about how women are shatters a lot of different narratives on the feminist side, not just about how women behave, but also shatters a bunch of narratives about women that women want to believe about themselves. The princess narratives, the I'm going to get the prince, and then it shatters the I'm a 10 narrative because she loves shattering that one. Right? She actually goes pretty broadly at feminism. She doesn't just pick on one thing and say this is my hobby horse. She goes, "Oh no, you're not tens. Oh no, you really are a chunky monkey. Oh, by the way, women really do think like this, and women really do behave like that." She's a threat to the fantasy that the weak men have built for themselves.
Huh.
And Trent, she's a threat to the fantasy you have built for yourself. That's why you react this way.
Well, I think this is a good point to cut it off. So we've gone about an hour and 15 minutes, and I think we're about halfway through. And
there's
we can
about 3 more minutes to get actual halfway, but yeah.
Oh, is that all? Well, then
Yeah.
I guess we might as well keep going. I wanted to do a teaser to get people to come back next week for the rest of the story. Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
Frankly, that I find that those men who just hate women, they like porn stars for the same reason they like Pearl. It gives them something that makes them feel good while they can disrespect the person giving it to them. Like the men who like Pearl, who hate women, they don't respect her. They just like that she's willing to exploit herself as a woman to make them feel good, just like porn stars will do.
Relationship.
Okay. We kind of touched on that, but he says that they like Pearl because they make her feel good. What?
Make them feel. I mean, granted, there might be some weird
But
guys.
then they
out there
hate
like
her
that,
just
but-
like they hate porn stars?
Yeah, I don't see these guys hating on her in the comments section. So
I think
the
this is a lot of sophistry and bullshit. It's kind of a word salad, too.
There
Yeah.
might be some guys out there like that, but I don't see it.
well, look, any girl, speaking from experience, having access to my wife's social medias, any girl on the internet is going to have creeps, freaks, and unpleasant people. That's not unique to Pearl, guys. That is literally every woman on social media who isn't, Gorlock the Destroyer. Right. And sometimes they have their own special brand of crazy in theirs. So no. You can't look and say one guy did this and I saw it in a comment somewhere, so it must all be like that. Bullshit.
Pearl also covers a lot of things. And it's not always the same theme. And I'm sure she's saying things that all these guys don't 100% agree with. Pearl in some ways talks like a man. She talks about this, and I agree over there, and she talks about that. Well, no, I don't agree with you there. But you're not judging her based on just what she's saying in the moment. It's like, yeah, she kind of challenges men to think. And so they appreciate that in a woman. And I don't really think the majority of men see her as a porn star.
Yeah, this is a cringe take that leaves me baffled and sort of like, okay, honestly,
Why doesn't he say that about his constituents though?
oh well, because he's pandering. Um, honestly, I think this is a little bit of narrative wish casting. He's trying to paint Pearl as a porn star. He's trying to, I believe in psychology, it's like associative. I'd have to ask Elena what the actual term is, but there's this thing. It's like you can do where you like if you associate somebody with a bad thing enough, you can taint their, you can get people to think that they're, this or that, right? And I'm
Yep.
sure Elena will, by the time we're done, have told me what it is, and but I'm wondering if that's what he's trying to do here, and if that's the case, yet again, Trent Horn is smuggling in an ad hom because he just doesn't like the fact that she disagrees with him and did so in a cogent way that he couldn't just immediately win the, because and Steve, I think he pointed out that this guy, he's pandering to, Catholic Answers, Karen wine moms, which is how I'm going to describe him. He's got an audience that he's playing to, and in that audience, comparing a woman to a porn star is like basically calling her the devil's handmaiden.
She was an egalitarian though, or wasn't for the red pill, they would be all over him for that, wouldn't they? But she's playing for the opposite team. All of a sudden, it's fair game.
Right.
That's
So
what I was
you're
trying to get at.
Trent never advocates for a patriarchal system. Never. It's always egalitarian. So doesn't that just tell you right there who his audience is?
Yep.
But people keep telling me that the Catholic Church doesn't have, it's not egalitarian. It's like a lot of churches, guys. There's a lot of lib progs in a lot of different churches, and I have been to some Catholic church. We're very lib prog, and
Well, I will tell you this. The Catholic Church doctrine is definitely patriarchal and not egalitarian. But the practice is egalitarian. And even the pre-Cana training before you get married, that's pretty egalitarian. So in practice, it's pretty egalitarian. But, I'm not saying anything about the Catholic Church that's not true about pretty much every church out there.
okay, well, we can wrap it up here. I will write down the timestamp. We're at 14:10 right now in a 34-minute clip video.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, we got a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah.
But, beauty of this is our discussion. And the three of us going through it like this, we bring up a lot of stuff with each other that we didn't think about individually. So if you like these kind of, it's kind of a random conversation, but it's triggered by a stream. That's why we play Trent at full speed, because we're not trying to tell you and do a synopsis of what Trent said. We're trying to pick it apart, and we might throw enough information at you that we don't need to play them at 1.5 speed.
We want everyone to think sanely.
Well, and understand, gentlemen, and this is something that I've been meditating on, if you will. It is very difficult to do this by yourself. Nick, Steve, and I, we spend a lot of time texting back and forth. Oh, this idea. Oh, have you thought about this? Could we take this angle or there's a lot that goes on. And yes, we're trying to bring you something that can help you think, but it works a lot better when you're interacting with other men. That's been my experience trying to do this. So if you're out there just sort of think about it this way. If you're sitting on your couch eating a nice big old bowl of popcorn and watching a TV series, and this is what I was doing last night, so I'm going to admit to it here. It's been a long week for me, and so I took my few hours off work. Are you really learning? Is it really an edifying, learning, engaging experience? Now, yes, sometimes you're just completely gone mentally and you just need to veg for a little bit. But let's be honest. You're vegging. This is brain food. That's what we're trying to make here is brain food. This isn't a stream that you're going to turn on for 8 hours and walk away and listen to blather. That's not what we're trying to produce here. Yes, Nick, I see you laughing down there.
That kind of brings something up. I've listened to some guys who come on and do a 3-hour stream, a monologue for 3 hours. Yeah, they might put up some clips and whatnot, but one guy is talking for 3 hours. A lot of it is just filling the time and putting out words until he can think of something else to say. In our stream, you got 3 guys. We limit it to, hour and a half, maybe. But there's a lot of
that seems to be an hour and a half seems to be the least we can do. So, Steve, you mentioned something here, and it reminded me of something that an old marketing buddy told me. He was relaying the story. I think it was a senator, and he was asked by some school to come give an address, and he asked the school principal or administrator. He says, "So how long does the address need to be?" And the administrator's kind of taken aback. Well, why does that matter? He says, "Look, if it needs to be an hour long, or if it's an hour long, I can go right now. If it's 20 minutes, I need 2 weeks. If it's 5 minutes, I need 2 months."
That's the same thing with sermons as well.
Oh, okay.
Many times.
Okay. So we're not out to lunch here.
No. Sometimes you can't help but go long, depending on the text, but yeah.
And we have occasionally gone long here, and we will go long here again at some point in the future. Although a 3-hour stream to do this whole video, I don't think is in the cards for any of us. But yeah.
Well, you lose viewers then too.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the long streams, there's people popping in and out, but it's confection. And yeah, okay, if you need background noise, but I don't think any of us here are interested in being background noise to anybody.
No,
Not really.
I got too much crap going on. I don't have time for that.
Yeah, same here. I'm gonna hop off and go back to work.
Yeah, I just got in town. I got to prepare for Wednesday. So,
yeah.
Robert Louis Dabney, patriarch of the Red Pill.
That's
Wednesday, guys.
That's this Wednesday. And I think we decided that we're going to do part 2 of this stream next Monday. So that's next Monday. And then we'll let you know what we'll have to come up with something for next Wednesday.
Hey, Nick, you got to give us a bit more of a preview of
Yeah.
Wednesday. Who is
Okay.
Robert Louis Dabney? Why is he such
Robert
a
Louis
great guy?
Robert Louis Dabney is probably the brightest Southern mind theologically in the United States. He was chaplain to the Confederacy. He was later became, I think, the chief of staff to General Stonewall Jackson. He wrote the biography to Stonewall Jackson. He was one of the founding faculty members of the University of Texas. Absolutely brilliant mind. He understood the direction of feminism, where it would take society, and we are living out what he predicted over 150 years ago right now.
So he predicted this stuff before feminism even got its name.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, let's see how accurate the man was. Tune in on Wednesday, and we can see how insightful and how smart he actually was.
Let's do it. Looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. Any final words, guys?
Nope. I'm good.
You good? Good.
That's it.
All right. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Later, guys.